This is Peter,
And this is Tom.
and you're listening to History Teachers Talking Podcasts. All right, this is Peter Zablocki and Thomas Reska, and welcome back to our podcast. Tommy, a lighter one today, I would say.
Doing a little tongue-in-cheek, a little bit light thing. Someone that we've been thrown out for a while, right? People have asked us, and we've thrown it. We've talked about maybe doing it here and there. It's not really like type of podcast that we do, but we did do vampires and zombies. So this,
I was going to say, this is a type of podcast that we do.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's just whatever you feel like talking about. And I do remember, and I have had students ask me this question about this thing before. So we're going to look at whatever you want to call it. You know, the Yeti, the Yowie, right? Sasquatch. Basically, we're looking at the concept of Bigfoot, whether it's a real thing or not, but also the phenomenon of Bigfoot and how it's become part of Americana and popular culture.
Yeah, and part of like American history, I guess, and whether now or later, but I mean, it's been around, even the term's been around, as we'll discuss today, in the United States culture since 1950s, but obviously the history of this dates prior to the 1950s.
It goes back to the indigenous people. And it's kind of like a examination, I guess, if you will, of like the human psyche and stuff like that. Because if you go around the world, you have all these other places around the world, like in Russia and stuff like that. They have like you have the same basic type of thing where they have this concept of this wild man or this wild ape, 7-foot ape that lives in the woods, that lives in this uncharted area that you don't go into, that attacks you if you come in there and things like that. So plus, everyone remembers from the 80s, what was that show and movie, Harry and the Hendersons? Like, that was like my favorite movie.
That made him seem like a good guy.
They made a TV show with it, too, I feel like.
I never seen the TV show, but I definitely seen the movie with the kiddos not that long ago, and they really enjoyed it. Googling this and researching this, I mean, Bigfoot's been compared to Michael Jordan as this cultural icon.
Well, I guess if you see it, you know what it is. Like, you see a picture of a Bigfoot, even though people have never actually seen a real one, I guess. But even if you look at like cave drawings of Bigfoots, it looks like the drawings of what we have now. So it's again, like why are people seeing it? That's why I was reading a lot about that. Like, why do people believe in Bigfoot? A lot of times they just want to believe in this like total freedom. Like, what would humans be if it wasn't for civilization? You know,
and they do believe it. I mean, according to a poll taken in May 2020, right, by the Smithsonian Magazine, 1 in 10 American adults actually believe that Bigfoot is a real animal.
Yeah, this is giant North American ape, roaming around.
All right, so let's get into it a little bit, right? Yeah, no, I guess we'll just start off with what technically is Bigfoot, and then some of the old school history of it, like you said, starting with Native Americans, and then we'll get into the origin of the Bigfoot name in 1950s.
We'll talk about a few things, little pop culture stuff.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about what we know about
some famous sightings, I guess, right? All right, so basically what I saw, and you can interrupt whatever, is it's bipedal, right? So it's an ape-like creature, big. A lot of times, besides the name, right? But anywhere from like 7, 8, 9 feet tall, covered in black hair or brown hair. Sometimes they describe it even taller. I've seen some up to 15 feet, which would be really big. And they describe it as like man-like, a human-like face for the most part. A lot of times you'll see that's what one man who said he actually had him in his sight of his rifle, but he couldn't bring himself to shoot it once it turned and looked at him because it looked so human, more basically man than ape. So he just couldn't do it. Very broad shoulders, no visible neck because it's so like basically muscular, long arms. And that's why they're saying some experts are saying, listen, a lot of times it's probably a bear standing up or a sickly bear standing up. And that's what people like misidentify it as if they see it really quickly.
Isn't there a video from 1960s that's like almost a minute long that it's often viewed and referred to? Yeah.
So skipping right to that one already.
Just kind of going like, what it looks like. But it's the Patterson-Gimlin film, right?
Yes.
It's recorded in October 20th, 1967 by Roger Patterson.
Most famous probably pictures of it, yeah.
Yeah, because and Bob, the second guy's name is Bob Gimlin. They explored Bluff Creek in Northern California. And again, this is the 60s, and they actually have their own, primitive video cameras, but they wound up recording a nearly 1 minute long, what is considered now an iconic piece of Bigfoot lore. I mean, analyzed to this day, pretty much any documentary you see on Bigfoot, this is supposedly the real deal. This is the picture of Bigfoot just kind of chilling, walking through, North America. And often kind of is pointed to as, okay, this is what they look like. You know what I mean? Although
that's the image. Yeah. Although there's been some it's weird because as people have come out and say no, that tape is false, as far as like they actually say no, like I was a guy in the suit, like they talked about that, and then there's still like people who believe in Bigfoot that are just like no, they're saying it's fake, that they faked it, but that's not true, which is really like a weird thing. Like these people are coming out and saying no, no, we faked it, like my dad faked it,
Yes.
and this is the proof that we faked it, and then the experts are saying no, you're just saying that now, but we know it's
Yeah.
real. So it's kind of like it doesn't matter. Like people are going to believe what they want to believe. If you ever watch the tape, it's kind of like weird at 1 second. I guess a little skeptical because at one point the creature does like turn and look right at the camera.
Doesn't the eyes shine, don't they?
Well, that's what they're saying. I was reading that and I saw some conflicting reports, but they talked about that some nighttime sightings of Bigfoot, the eyes have glowed yellow or red. However, eye shine is not present in humans or any known species of apes. So it's kind of like
Do you think it's like an owl that when people
yeah,
see
like
it,
that, yeah.
it's
I
like
mean,
a
it could be out on a
nocturnal
tree.
animal?
Because like yeah, like apes and humans don't have eye shine,
Yeah.
so you shouldn't have that. So that's again that's at night. But yeah, getting back to the Patterson film, people if you get yeah if you watch any Bigfoot show or documentary or anything on Bigfoot, you've probably seen that picture. It's probably the first picture that comes up if you Google it. People are saying they're just saying that this is really real. You can see like the ripples of the muscles and stuff like that. Like they've done all these different like types of
Studies and stuff.
studies
Yeah.
on it and stuff like that. And who knows? I guess you're going to believe what you want to believe as far as that goes.
That's
That
right.
particular thing. But they also say, listen, if even that one was a hoax, it doesn't mean it's not out there. And if it is a hoax, it doesn't mean that those things, what that was, is what they thought it was. So
Yep.
who knows?
This is something that has been around for essentially anywhere between like 500 to 1,000 years, I would
Yeah,
say,
there's cave paintings
ago.
of it. Yeah, so people
Yep.
know about it. Even before the name Bigfoot even became, I guess, one of the famous ones is U.S. President, right, Theodore Roosevelt
Hmm.
actually wrote in his book, The Wilderness Hunter. He writes a story about how he was told about this elderly mountain man, in which there was a foul-smelling bipedal creature that ransacked the trapping. Like they were trapping beavers and
Yep.
stuff like that. And he's saying this creature actually stalked him and became hostile. And actually, the guy was saying that it broke his companion's neck in the wilderness in the Ohio-Montana border. And then
Yep.
Roosevelt talks about this in his book, and he said he didn't see anything, but he heard like the howls and stuff. And
Yep.
so he was like a believer of it. A lot of Bigfoot believers really look at that whole thing because they're
Because
the
it's Teddy Roosevelt.
president's talking about Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
And he was an outdoorsman, and he was dealing with all that stuff.
And
So
he did say that the guy that kind of told him that story initially, he said the guy was German, and he kind of said, Germans and grim tales, and he's like, there was a little bit of folklore in there, and then although he heard something, he could not confirm that he saw anything as
yeah,
far
he
as
never saw anything.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Just said he heard something that he didn't think was something that he's ever heard before.
Yep.
So
I mean, you look at the Iroquois, you look at various different tribes on these cave paintings, and they often refer to these creatures as either wild man or hairy man, which really stems from one particular creature was named. If you look at it, it's like SE''SXA, or another term
yeah,
Sasquatch, which was a meaning that actually in that particular tribe meant wild men. And that's where the term Sasquatch comes from, which I thought was kind of interesting because Sasquatch and Bigfoot are very much interchangeable for the longest time until really
yeah,
1950s.
yeah. I would say too. Even a lot of the Bigfoot hunters, if you ever watched that show, I remember seeing like parts of it here and there. They always talk, the squatches in the area, right? So they'll use that term Sasquatch too, almost
Yep.
like it's like the scientific name for Bigfoot. But yeah, I guess we can get to the
To the
origin of the name,
naming,
right?
yeah,
So basically, in the 1958, there was a logging company in California. They discovered these large set of prints. They were like 16 inches wide, some are even bigger, in the Six Rivers National Forest. And
hmm
they find them, and at first they're just like, "Oh, what's going on?" This, and then the workers started talking about it, and then a lot of the other workers claimed to have been seeing similar tracks on previous jobs as well. So by like an oil drum, if they saw like an oil drum was moving, this oil drum weighed 450 pounds. Like, how is this oil drum moving? These footprints were all around the oil drum. So they soon began to the people in the logging company started calling it Bigfoot to describe
yep,
this culprit. They had no idea what it was, and they thought someone was playing a prank on them. And then as more and more of these footprints kept on coming, they contact a reporter, right, Andrew
hmm
Genzoli, and he's the one that interviewed the workers and wrote articles about the mysterious footprints, and that's when then including the name Bigfoot, which then that's basically when that name started to catch on.
like I read an interview by the journalist, and he said that when he did it, when he initially went there to take the story, right? in September of 1958. He said it just seemed like the mysterious footprints and stuff, and the logman story just simply seemed like a good Sunday morning tale. So he kind of wrote it up, and to his surprise, he received so many follow up articles, or rather letters, so many follow up letters about this just one article that he wrote. So he's like, okay, and he said he never got this much attention for anything before. So then he kind of went back and started doing more interviews and started writing more articles, each Sunday about this Bigfoot or the legend in a sense. And he kind of was very responsible in creating this legend because of the fact that he continuously wrote about it, and he started
Yeah.
comparing it to myths of different wild men around the world. And I would say he's
Well,
the guy that kind
definitely.
of made it a thing.
Yeah, he definitely started to sensationalize. And what he also did was they made plaster casts of the footprints, and they
Yep.
took pictures of it and they put those in the newspaper. So now they're
Right.
talking about a Bigfoot or whatever this thing is, and they're showing, oh, this is the actual picture. This is in the 1950s. There's no social media. If you want to see pictures of something, you're looking for the newspaper, right? Like that's it. You're hearing about it for a while, then you're finally seeing these pictures. It's just going to capture the imagination of people, and they're saying a lot. That's really what a lot of this is. It just captures people's imagination that wow, something like this could be out there.
And
You know,
also at the time there was a TV show called Truth or Consequences, in 1950s, and it basically tried to explain the unexplainable. And they offered, so around the same time, they offered $1,000 to anyone who could prove the existence of Bigfoot. Like this became in the
a
late
big thing.
50s, yeah, like a cultural phenomenon almost.
Just caught the national attention. And when they started connecting it to all these stories, that's the thing too. So they're talking about this story, right? These footprints over in California, but it connects to all these other stories, right? That has been part of human folklore in that region all over the world for thousands of years. It just catches on, like wow, this there's something to this.
Yep.
That's what people really want to believe because it's happening now in our time, but it's been happening thousands of years too. So it's got to be real. They've got to be out there, and that's really just caught people's attention too as well.
And shortly thereafter, 1961, naturalist Ivan Sanderson publishes his book, Abominable Snowman Legend Come to Life. And he uses footprints, eyewitnesses, and bone samples as potential evidence of a subhuman existence, right? Living on 5 different continents across the world, including North America's Bigfoot Sasquatch, right? And Himalayas Yeti. Again, now you have quasi scientists trying to prove that, like, look, this exists. Looking at this, you have science magazines that start being published and start publishing journals, or rather attempt to prove through various articles the existence of Bigfoot.
And there's sightings in every single state in the United States, with the exception of Hawaii. There's like a recording sighting. I mean, whether or not they're everywhere, I'm not saying that, but most of them are in the Pacific Northwest.
I
But
was gonna say
according to
I
the
thought it was very
yeah,
specific, right?
well, yeah, in that area, but according to the Bigfoot Society, right, which are individuals that like they record all the sightings and stuff like that, right? There's been more than 10,000 eyewitness accounts of Bigfoot in the continental United States in the last 50 years, and even since 2019, there's been even more. The same people are going out hiking and stuff like that more, particularly. So they're finding even more sightings of something out there. So every state has had a reported Bigfoot sighting with the exception of Hawaii.
I wonder why not Hawaii. I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah,
And it's funny because a lot of people believe that what people are seeing, specifically in the regions of Washington, Oregon, right, Northern California, or British Columbia, is either as it's been established, that they're probably looking at bears. Ultimately, you mentioned this before, right?
yeah,
And the second thing, that maybe they're even escaped apes. Like that's possible. Like what these
that's
people
a
are
big.
really
Yeah, a lot of
seeing.
times, yeah, from like private owners. So these aren't like
Yep.
ones that like escape from zoos necessarily. But a lot of times they have private owners, and if you see something like this, I think in Florida there's one that's called the skunk ape, and it's they said it's probably some sort of like escaped ape and stuff like that. But there's a lot of weird ones to that. Another one's just it's just humans. A lot of times, not humans necessarily doing it on purpose. A lot of them are saying it could just be feral humans or hermits living in the wilderness. People see it, you know, and then that's a Bigfoot,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
in one particular, in 2007, a Bigfoot field research organization put what they thought was evidence, photos of what they thought was a juvenile Bigfoot, and then the Pennsylvania Game Commission actually went in to do a study on this and realized that the photos that were seen were really photos of a bear with a specific skin disease that was caused by parasitic mites. So they're like, yeah, no, that's just a bear. And actually, a lot of bears, apparently, specifically black bears, have been observed and recorded walking upright, often as a result of injury or other things. So that's the main thing. And besides the apes, you have the bears. And then, some people think that maybe it's human beings. Like it's possible that you have some humans that just kind of live in the woods and are very much away from the real population, and they kind of pop up in random places, and people get like freaked out when they see someone that is super hairy or whatever living and squatting somewhere in the middle of the woods. I mean, there's a story of an ape man, right, that roamed the wilderness in Texas in mid 19th century. Apparently, like stole food and goods and other things from residents, and eventually they captured him.
Yeah,
So
because to me, you just walk in the woods, you find a person who or anything like that, you're gonna freak out, run. So
behavior of Bigfoot's like you like because you
okay.
think you're hearing it, you think you're seeing it. So like, what are we actually
So
hearing and
some of the
seeing?
reports are saying that a lot of times, if what I saw in all this and from those shows, like if they're knocking, you'll hear like tree knocking, like they're knocking on trees. It's how they communicate. If they're throwing rocks is a big thing. All right, that they're throwing rocks, or that's how they communicate. They're throwing these giant boulders to try to like intimidate. They get people to leave. A lot of times they're going to break structures or twist down specific branches and stuff like that. They're saying that's big for behavior. They say they do make nests. So a lot of times they'll see like, oh, this area right here, this must be a Sasquatch nest.
And the simple is like
There's,
screams, moans, grunts, right? Whistles.
like the noises that they're hearing. Yeah, like the Sierra sounds. Yeah, I don't know. You ever watched that show Survivor Man? The guy
Yeah,
that goes
yeah,
out in the
yeah.
woods and is by himself. So Lee Strauss, a guy in Survivor Man, actually said that he heard some things once on some of his journeys when he's by himself in the woods. He does it for like weeks, and it sounded primate origin. He handed the sounds over to people. They're like, "Oh, we don't really know what this is. It could have been anything, but they're not sure." But even he's one that he's done a couple things. They're just saying they ran it through all these filters, and they proved it wasn't an owl, wolf, coyote, or fox. That's what they could prove it was not. So they couldn't prove it was
Hmm.
anything different, but it wasn't any of those things. So that's just some of them. They make these noises. Other ones is that they hunt deer. That was a big thing. They're probably mostly they're omnivores like we would be, but they said that deer is a big thing. They hang the deer carcasses up in the trees. I saw a lot of that. So if you see like a deer carcass hanging up in a tree, leave it there because it's probably a Bigfoot's dinner. They're coming back
Well,
for it, so don't mess
and
with it.
this wasn't there a story about a guy that mistakenly shot his friend because his
Well,
friend he thought,
that happens quite a bit. He thought his friend was a Bigfoot, so he shot him.
yeah,
There's been a couple things like that. Well, a lot of people have also purposely not to like purposely trick people, but I guess trick like their friends. They weren't putting it as a hoax. They're just trying to freak out their friends. They would like dress up as a Bigfoot or dress up as put on one of these gorilla suits and like run through the woods and stuff like that, trying to scare people and wind up getting shot by someone else. Like it's not a good idea to just put like a costume on and run around the woods because you don't
yeah.
know who else is around there. So yeah, that happens too.
Plus, apart from like what we think a Bigfoot looks like, and apart from weird noises that we think will identify a Bigfoot, or rocks being thrown, or branches being broken, I mean, all these things could really be done, including the noises and rocks and branches, by any really animal living in the wilderness. So there's nothing that specifically says, "Hey, this is Bigfoot language. This is a Bigfoot noise." So that's why we have a lot of hoaxes, because a lot of people don't really know or have specific proof. And science, as we're going to get into in a little bit, science has definitely tried. A lot of scientists have tried to prove the existence of this.
And
Um,
it's also there's money in proving its existence. Like there's this guy Rick Dreyer. I'm sure you probably Dyer. You probably saw him a couple
Dyer,
times. A couple times
2008.
he's
Yeah.
come out. 2008, also in 2014, 2012. He's come out saying that he has a Bigfoot. He's had it tested. It's Bigfoot. It's the DNA and stuff like that. And then he comes out saying, all right, no. Then all the scientific groups like, let us see it. Let us see it. He's like, $1 million. You can look at it. It's like
I
stuff like
saw that.
that.
Yeah.
And then he winds up saying, he paid these people to like make it and stuff like that. Then he says, no, he did actually kill a Bigfoot in real life, but he didn't take the real body on tour because he was afraid it was going to be stolen. So he says, this one here is the fake Bigfoot. I do have a real one, but I'm afraid someone's going to steal it, so I'm just keeping it locked up like in a freezer in my house.
And even then,
So
like people are like, so who
like,
did
what are you
the
talking about?
test? Yeah, and who did the test for it? And he goes, oh, it's
Yeah,
an undisclosed lab. What undisclosed lab? Like who? Like we're talking about 3D optical scans and DNA tests. Like,
yeah,
dude,
all
that's
this
not a
stuff.
random lab that does this. I think, and he keeps on admitting of like I think didn't he admit eventually that that it was a hoax? I thought he did.
He did, yeah, but now he's saying he does have a real one.
Oh,
He
okay.
just that's not the one he put on tour. So the one that he paid someone to basically put like latex foam and like
Yeah, yeah.
camel hair, and they called it Hank. And he actually earned like quite a bit of money just taking this thing on tour. like just charging people to come and see it.
And if you're looking at past, you have in 1968, there was like a frozen corpse of like supposed human ape looking, hair covered, 5 feet, 11 inches, Bigfoot, apparently. And it was part of this traveling exhibition. And then the story behind it was that it was killed by hunters in Minnesota. It was basically supposed to be a Bigfoot, like a younger Bigfoot. A primatologist wound up studying this exhibition's Bigfoot and concluded that it was basically the same thing. It was a hoax made of latex. And then, of course, the company that was traveling with this thing and charging people to see it said he did not study the original subject. He studied something else. He studied like the thing we put out there so no one would steal. The same thing. No one would steal the real one.
But really, I get to the scientific view a little bit. The expert consensus is basically that it's not credible science. That's what most of these like
Yeah.
mainstream scientists say. And a lot of them say, listen, they would like nothing better for there to be a Bigfoot,
Yeah.
right? I saw that they would love it, but it just doesn't make sense that there is one. Or at least they said there's no scientific evidence to prove that it actually does exist. They're not even sure if the climate and the food supply would allow for such a big, ape-like creature to survive in that area.
Yeah.
Others say, listen, there's enough food for a small number of them to survive. You're not going to have millions of them, obviously, roaming around, but you can have a population of several hundred to 1,000 or so that could be out there. And they're saying that, it could be like the missing link. That's kind of what the pundits will come back and say to the scientific community. They're saying it's like a missing link between humans and apes, something like that, or a formerly like extinct hominid, or they thought it was an extinct hominid that survived and continued to evolve along with Homo sapiens. Suggestion like a Neanderthal or something like that.
And to kind of add to what you're saying, I mean, the scientists wanting this to be real, I mean, there's a lot of formal studies that attempt to prove this, and these studies have been, date back to the 70s. Really, there is Bigfoot traps that are set up in different national forests. You have in 1974, there was a National Wildlife Federation that funded a field study seeking Bigfoot evidence. A Journal of Biogeography in 2009 was trying to sponsor something that would go and seek out Bigfoot. So there is an actual studies that are being conducted to try to find it.
There's people who have offered millions of dollars if anyone can find anything like that. So there's a whole bunch of research going out there. They have that show. I know there was that. It's a show, but if you watch that Finding Bigfoot show, which I think finally ended, they never found Bigfoot. That was basically the purpose of the show. And it was just all they did was like go in the woods. Oh, you hear that? Oh, you hear that? Like it's all those types of things. But a lot of scientists say, listen, if there was a Bigfoot, they would have an actual report of the vocalizations throughout North America. That something that large, you're not going to have more capture of it, like more of sounds. If it existed, they would find a lot more tracks than what they do find, because it's a megafauna, so they would find a lot more tracks. And they said also that you'd find some form of DNA somewhere, whether it's feces, hair, a dead corpse, hide, something. You would have found something at some point. And since they haven't found any DNA whatsoever, they just can't believe that something like that does exist.
There's a Bigfoot field researchers organization that tries to continue this, even though the scientists are skeptical. There are a lot of websites. There's a lot of different organizations, the largest and oldest being the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, that still believe and continue to conduct research to determine the credibility of Bigfoot. And then going to pop culture, I mean, oh my goodness, I mean, it's
Well, it's
Bigfoot.
everything. Yeah. I mean, it's Bigfoot. There's signs a lot of places in like Colorado and stuff like that that just says, due to sightings in the area of a creature resembling Bigfoot, we just warning you. Again, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's out there. There's actually a law in Washington that says that killing a Bigfoot is a felony, and you'll be fined $10,000 or 5 years imprisonment if you do kill a Bigfoot. So you do have laws out there about it. So it's kind of strange.
That's kind of crazy.
So it's part of the pop culture. We have a whole bunch of that whole cryptozoology, right? A whole about these like mythical creatures, or even just creatures that they don't know, that some people say exist, but they're not sure. I guess that's a future podcast we can always do too, like Loch Ness monster, right? Chupacabra,
Yep.
things of that nature. That they're just out there, and it's become part of the culture. Like you said, you have that monster truck from the 80s, right? Bigfoot. I think it's still around, right? The whole monster truck thing,
Yep.
Bigfoot. You have movies. You even had movies recently, right? Like Smallfoot and stuff like that, right? I remember those cartoons my kids love to watch. And you have all these ones about like the Bigfoot living in the forest and meeting people and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of, it's just part of it. And again, you mentioned Bigfoot to somebody, they know who it is. Like they know what a Bigfoot is. So even if it's not a real animal, they know in their mind's eye what a Bigfoot is if you mention that to somebody.
Lighthearted.
Study on human psyche, I guess.
Yeah, so this was a very lighthearted and nice and short podcast on
So what do you
Bigfoot.
think, Pete? Do you think there's Bigfoots out there?
Honestly, I'm not the one to say I don't believe in things. I would like to, see it, but I'm not going to say I have to see it to believe it. I am, hey, everyone to each his own. To each his own. I don't judge. Do
As long as you're
I
not hurting
think?
anybody.
Yeah, do I think I'm going to see a Bigfoot? I mean, I see a bear jumping on my garbage once in a while. I record that, but who am I to say that there's no Bigfoot? I don't know.
Wouldn't that be funny though if like somehow they do find Bigfoots and they find them in New Jersey?
That would be awesome. We
Like
would be known
out
for
of all the
something.
places, like that's where they find Bigfoot is New Jersey.
We would actually be known for something.
Like that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. To say the least. Well, anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in once more to our more of a lighthearted conversation on Bigfoot this particular week. We do appreciate you coming back week after week. If you guys want to contact us, you can find us at www.historyteacherstalkingpodcast.com. Please feel free to leave a review and click the subscribe button wherever you do listen to this podcast. We do appreciate that. And I hope everyone has an awesome week. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy.
Stay safe, everybody.
I hope everyone enjoyed our podcast, and if you would like to email us, you can do so at historyteacherspodcast@gmail.com.